Words of our text this evening are found in the last verses of the Gospel according to Luke, chapter 16, verses 27 through 31. These verses, as you can clearly see, are part of the parable, so-called, of the rich man and Lazarus. It is one of three parables which the Lord taught, which really is composed of two separate parables. The one is the wedding feast, part of which is the call to the wedding feast, and the other part of which is the man without a wedding garment. The second one, that is composed of two distinct parables, is the parable of the lost son. The first part being the father's willingness to receive his wayward son again into his fellowship. The second part being the complaint and nasty hatred of the elder brother. This parable also consists of two distinct parts, both of which have a separate and distinct meaning. The first part of this parable deals with the life of a rich man and the beggar Lazarus in this world. The rich man who was clothed in purple and fared sumptuously every day, and Lazarus the beggar, who had to subsist on the crumbs which were swept from the rich man's house and whose sores were licked by the dogs. It also shows the dreadful end of the rich man in the fires of hell, while Lazarus was caught up into Abraham's bosom. The sin of the rich man was the sin of covetousness. This follows from what the Lord has said in the first part of this chapter, in verses 1 through 12, where he taught the parable of the unfaithful steward and the warning of the Lord against the sin of covetousness when he addressed the scribes and Pharisees. This parable follows on that and is an illustration of the dreadful sin of covetousness and the consequences to which it leads in the existence, that is, the portion of the wicked after their death, the horrors of hell. Those horrors of hell are emphasized in the text by the request of the rich man that Abraham send Lazarus with just one drop of water to cool momentarily his tongue, for as he puts it, he is tormented in this flame. But that too is denied him. But now, with verse 17, the subject changes. The rich man himself in the torments of hell changes the subject, not any longer begging for a drop of water, but now asking for Abraham to send Lazarus to his 5 brothers who are still living and to call them to repentance from their dreadful sin. That part of the parable does not have to do anymore with the punishment of those who are covetous, but has to do instead with an entirely different subject. And that entirely different subject with which the Lord deals in the second part of this parable is the subject of the sufficiency of the gospel. That was the question. The rich man said the gospel is not enough. Abraham responded and said, "It is. If they hear not Moses and the prophets, neither will they be persuaded, though one rise from the dead." And it's to that subject that I call your attention tonight, the sufficiency of the gospel. I do this in connection with the Lord's Day, with which we dealt this morning, and that part of the Lord's Day which says that the Son of God gathers his church through his word and spirit. That idea of the gathering of the church through the word and spirit of the exalted Christ is the main point of this second part of the parable. The sufficiency of the gospel. Notice in the first place, the wicked request of the rich man. Secondly, the forceful answer of Abraham. And thirdly, the application of the truth to us today. I say that the request of the rich man in hell was wicked. Most commentators don't agree with that. They say that the wicked man in hell showed some remorse and showed some pity for his brothers, and wanted desperately that although he was denied even a drop of water, his brothers would be spared the torments of hell. I say that's a wrong interpretation of the rich man's request. It's wrong in the first place because the wicked are unable to do any good in hell. They are unable to sin too, in a certain sense of the word, but they are unable to do good. They were unable to do good in their life, and the only power of good in the world is the power of regeneration, and they certainly are not capable of doing good in hell. Not even the good of having pity for one's family. In the second place, however, this is a wicked request because of the nature of hell itself. I want to make a few comments about that because we don't often hear hell discussed in sermons. And in a way, of course, that's not a pleasant subject to discuss.